I just can't imagine us three getting on that well under pressure. It's as simple as that, and this is a very good way of starting. To actually discuss it amongst ourselves about what's going on. Yeah, sure is. And why that communication hasn't taken place probably lies with us all, the fault or the mistake or whatever, but I certainly don't intend to let it from my side carry on.
The sun returned on August the 22nd and brought a great sense of relief. And all thoughts turned to the polar departure just 8 weeks away.
What I've done then is marked our general route, 400 miles across the barrier from Cape Evans to Mount Hope, perhaps 40 days, it could be much longer. Then the Beardmore, it's 130 miles climbing to 10,000 feet. If we get the deep snow that slowed Scott, we could be in trouble. By then there'll be no going back, but it's only another 350 miles to the pole. That's as long as we don't get lost. Okay, 27 tins of butter. What's next? 4 chocolates, 4 pounds each one.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
on the soup after that, Rod. 2 times 2.
Soup.
It didn't really matter what decisions we made in the hut ultimately. The final decision as to who would be walking to the pole would be taken when 3 people set off. But as far as I was concerned, I was sure that I wanted Gareth.
1 ounce each kit and the shovel, plastic one, to go with the tent.
That's right.
Which pulls me up to 353.4 or 5. I mean, bang on.
And my running total was 330.9 pounds. And if I take the extra hot chocolate container at 4 pounds and the spares kit, and that will bring me up to 353.6 as well.
So Robert's got the lightest sledge?
By 0.2 pounds.
All right. Let you off this time.
Right.
At last, on October the 26th, they were ready to start their momentous journey.
I felt actually quite calm, and I walked along to Scott's hut and walked in, lay down on his bunk, looked up at the ceiling, and I thought to myself, well, this is what you saw, Captain Scott, on the day of your departure. 75 years on, here we are. And I left the hut in tears, and I felt the spirit of Scott's expedition really very strongly that day, and almost a presence of them with us.
After the experience of the Cape Crozier journey, it's a relief to find that we can pull the sledges, but I'm always aware that no one has ever pulled such weights, and certainly not for such an enormous distance.
They all walked the first 50 miles. But Roger's will prevailed, and Gareth was to go to the pole.
It was really painful to see them off when I'd wanted to go so much, but it was also a relief. There'd be no more tensions and there was the summer to enjoy.
The first section of the journey is across the Great Ice Barrier, 397 miles to the entrance of the Beardmore Glacier. In many ways, it would be the most difficult part, with their sledges at their heaviest, weighing over 350 pounds. They eased themselves into the journey by walking only 5 hours per day.
It's a tremendous load, 356 pounds. And you're pulling from the waist and shoulders. The shoulders began to ache. You could feel a tremendous pressure on your feet as you pushed with your toes against the ski bindings to pull that load away with each step. It was simply a case of plodding one step in front of the other. The skis were merely there to prevent our feet from sinking into the snow. I don't think I've ever worked so hard.
By day 10, they had covered only 86 miles. It was too slow. They had to average at least 10 miles a day, otherwise their food would run out well before the pole.
Stove. My sleeping bag. Never once did any of us get bored of what we ate. The evening meal was the highlight of the day. I found it just really sort of paradise, just sitting there in the tent, had a little bit of warmth from the stove for a while, and just to sit there having one's macaroni and cheese or whatever. It was just bliss.
The tent provided an illusion of security, and yet lying in your sleeping bag with your head right up against the fabric of the tent, you could perhaps hear the wind blowing snow against the tent. So it was almost like an oasis.
Day 22 was spent in the tent because of the blizzard raging outside, and no rations were consumed. No mileage, no food. And now, Gareth's feet were giving him problems. An estimated 58 days from the pole, but food for only 53. They maintained their strict regime of 3 3-hour marches through the never-changing landscape, but this was not enough.
I stopped 5 times today to change the bandages on my feet. I'm beginning to feel like a burden to the others. I can take more pain, but it's a question of knowing how hard to push myself without causing any permanent damage.
Day 32. 320 miles gone and over 500 to go. They were fast approaching the point of no return, where they would no longer have sufficient food to retrace their steps. And as their commitment increased, so did the tension between them.
It was a bad day. It was the day where I was hitting the bottom, and I thought Gareth was hitting the bottom. I felt very strongly that perhaps if it went on like this, we would die. It was as though on many occasions on the expedition we didn't say anything, but this was an occasion where I thought, well, it's time to do it because of my fears about myself and my fears for Gareth.
So Robert asked whether they should turn back.
There's no way that I would consider turning around at this point. We have not yet reached our point of no return. I feel it is too early and I still have some time to sort out my problems with my feet.
But Roger saw things differently.
I told Gareth that he had to pull his finger out and that his problem was as much in his head as in his feet. But I also felt that Robert was using Gareth as an excuse.
They stayed where they were for the rest of that day and carried out repairs to their equipment and to themselves. Most important of all, they made alterations to both Gareth and Robert's sledges, changing the runners so that they would pull more easily.
Pulling away in the morning, I noticed a difference in literally the first few yards. The sledge felt so much lighter. I knew that then I had another 500 miles in me.
But there ahead of them loomed the mighty Beardmore Glacier, second longest in the world. A slow climb of 136 uncertain miles. Would the crevasses reveal themselves or be covered by treacherous snow bridges waiting to punish any lapse in concentration? And would there be snow on the ground which held up Scott so tragically? Or would it be ice to enable them to make up the miles they so desperately needed? Then, at their point of commitment, they spotted something. Other people. They should not have been there.
Yeah, I'm Robert Swan, the so-called expedition leader.
Robert, Jim Mattinson.
They were 4 American geologists. I was devastated. I had slogged 400 miles under great physical and emotional strain and effort, and I had had my objective snatched away from me.
John, nice to meet you. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the Gateway.
But how'd you do?
Well, we're delighted. Unofficially, of course.
We stayed with them for 2 days, eating and resting. But the meeting destroyed the purpose of the journey. The isolation vanished as if it had never existed, and our dream of making the longest unsupported walk in history was over. And it seemed that ahead of us lay only miles of drudgery.
While the Americans helicoptered out, there was no turning back for the 3.
The Beardmore is a wonderfully welcome